The New York Yankees were not done acquiring stars to the back end of their bullpen as they acquired star closer Camilo Doval from the San Francisco Giants in exchange for a haul of prospects. Doval joins David Bednar as another star closer that the Yankees acquired today, and that's on top of already having Devin Williams, who has had an up and down year, and Luke Weaver to really solidify a very strong back end of the bullpen. This did not come cheap, though. They had to give up 4 prospects back to San Francisco in order to make this trade happen. So let's go ahead, talk about this deal, the 4 players the Yankees gave up, how Camilo Doval fits in with the Yankees' plans, how the prospects fit in with the Giants' plan, and get some trade grades to each of these teams and discuss how each of them did. Of course, if you want to stay updated on all the stuff that just happened this trade deadline, make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit that notification bell to get videos on all the trades that have already happened this deadline and stay up to date on any that might come this offseason and beyond. Without further ado, let's dive headfirst into this trade. Camilo Doval is a star back-end reliever who still has 2 more years of team control after this year is over, which was part of the appeal and why the Yankees were so eager to acquire his talents. After making the All-Star game for the first time in 2023 and having a very good past 2 years before that where he won this closer role in San Francisco, he struggled decently much in 2024, even losing the job for a little bit, only picking up 23 saves and 59 innings pitched with 11.9 strikeouts per 9, but the real reason why he struggled was because his walk rate ballooned to 5.9. That's right, in 59 innings pitched, he ended up walking 39 batters, which is just not a sustainable rate. Things have been brought down to about normal for him in 2025, although not as high as his 2023 and 2022 numbers. So far this season, he's gone 4-2 with a 3.09 ERA across 47 games, picked up 15 saves and 46 and 2/3 innings pitched in the process. His strikeout rate is the lowest of his career so far. However, he's struck out only 50 batters in those 46 and 2/3 innings pitched, good for 9.6. His next lowest number was back in 2022, which was also a very good campaign for him, where he had 10.6 strikeouts per 9. So strikeout rate is definitely a little bit lower, but he has traded away some of his walking. He has now only allowed 24 walks in that 46 and 2/3, which is still his second worst in his career, but it's still better than the 5.9 he was doing last season. Doval's only 27, so it's not like he's old and on the back end of a declining curve, although relievers do tend to be very volatile. He's only 2 years out from leading the National League in both games finished and saves, so I have no doubt that there's a chance he can get back to close to, if not exactly where he used to be just a couple years ago. He very easily slots into a now stacked back end of the Yankees bullpen and will be there for years to come, given that he has 2 more years of team control after 2025. The Giants in exchange are getting 4 players back, the first being Jesus Rodriguez, a catcher who also played some third base, who signed in the 2018 international signing class for just $10,000 out of Venezuela. He's got a very strong arm, but isn't the best at framing, which is why scouts generally think that he's probably going to end up at third base, which is interesting because often you think of catchers moving to first base, but he isn't as big. He's only 5'10", 208. So third base, left field, and second base have also been things he's tried. He has tried first base as well, but it's less likely he ends up there. Rodriguez is known for making good contact, which is something that is definitely a plus as he's risen through the system. However, he tends to be very aggressive, and although he does have good bat-to-ball ability, that can get him into trouble very easily. He makes a lot of weak contact, which is fine. Luis Arias does make a lot of weak contact, but Rodriguez doesn't have that same skill set and ability to still make an impact with that. He's done a very good job at throwing out base stealers, however, 42%. But again, his framing and receiving skills are still pretty lacking, which is why he's most likely to move off the position into a different one. He's still lacking a defensive home, so maybe he's best suited as a DH. But even then, he doesn't have a ton of power or hit tools to really be a successful DH. The second notable player heading back is Trystan Vrieling, who was the Yankees' 3rd-round pick in the 2022 MLB draft and is definitely a starter. He has decent control, and the third rounder out of Gonzaga has 4 pitches that he's able to use effectively. The changeup is his worst, and it's definitely a below average pitch, but it does its job at getting opposite-handed hitters out, and his fastball, curveball, and slider are all very solid and able to get hitters out from both sides of the dish. After being drafted, he didn't actually start anywhere, but he did add 20 pounds to his frame before his pro debut. However, those immediate results would have to wait a little bit as he suffered a stress fracture in his pitching elbow before returning to the mound in the Arizona Fall League at the end of 2023. He finally made his minor league debut at the age of 23 last year and pitched decently well, a 13-7 record across 25 starts to a 4.58 ERA, striking out 132 across 147 innings pitched. And that was at Double-A for making his minor league debut, definitely impressive. He's played his most games so far this season as well in Double A, going 1-2 with a 4.5 ERA across 10 starts. That's 46 innings pitched, 42 strikeouts, and only 18 walks. Being 24, Vrieling needs to go ahead and really start dominating Double A in order to be seen as a true good prospect. I wouldn't be shocked to see him fall off the MLB pipeline list by the time the re-rank happens at the beginning of next season. Right now he's at 19. He's not listed on Baseball America. Because he's 24, he definitely needs to be doing better at Double A than he is doing right now. So we'll see how that will go. But he is still bulking up from being a reliever in his first 2 years of college at Gonzaga. He started that final year, so he doesn't have a ton of experience and not a lot of usage on the arm, so there is still some upside there. Next, we'll talk about third baseman Parks Harber. Harber originally attended the University of Georgia, but ended up transferring for his senior season to UNC and did not get drafted in the 2024 MLB draft, but did sign with the Yankees as an undrafted free agent. He did decently well in 23 games at Single A Tampa, hitting a 269, 389, 449 slash line for an 838 OPS, and has put up even better numbers this year at High A. Through 34 games at that level, he's put together a very respectable 326, 395, 489 slash line, good for an 884 OPS, even better than what he had last year. And his original stint in Tampa at the start of the year through 20 games was even better, culminating in a 973 OPS, which is why he got promoted. Harber is currently on the injured list, so he hasn't played since July 10th, or if not a little bit earlier. So the Giants must be happy with what they've seen out of his medical and not super concerned about his injury to go ahead and acquire him. If you look solely at his Single A performance so far in some of the underlying metrics, he's 96th percentile or higher in the following stats: expected weighted on base average, expected batting average, expected slugging, exit velocity, 100th percentile and 50th percentile exit velocity, 90th percentile exit velocity, barrel percentage, hard hit percentage, and swing strike percentage. Those are elite underlying metrics, and is why the Giants really do think someone who has somewhat of a not real human name is someone who's a really interesting prospect that they are interested in seeing him develop under their organization. The final player involved in this deal is Carlos De La Rosa, and you'll be seeing Doval highlights because unfortunately he is in the Dominican Summer League, and there are very few videos that ever come out of prospects in the Dominican Summer League unless they are some of the higher rated prospects who signed for a lot of money. However, the starter has done really well so far. He's 17 and a lefty, and he has 15.2 innings pitched across 5 starts so far, and has struck out 29 batters and just 3 walks. Not walking a lot of guys at that level is incredibly impressive. It's decently easy to get a lot of strikeouts, but to strike out 29 guys in 15 and 2/3 is definitely very impressive. His ERA, unfortunately, is a little bit inflated right now, which is something that you might want to look out for. It's 5.32 right now, but if you look at his fielding independent pitching, which is a metric that looks at how a pitcher does if you remove luck and things like how good your defense is behind you, it's 2.17. It's basically like an expected ERA stat that's not actually expected ERA. He's at 57% of batters on base, and his strikeout rates are just so high, 14.73 strikeouts per 9. He's only allowed 1 home run. It's just really impressive stuff that he's done. Finally, now that we've talked about all 5 players in this deal, let's go ahead and actually give this trade some grades. For the Yankees, this is a slam dunk A+. This is their 3rd catcher that they've traded away, as they traded 2 in the David Bednar deal, but they really don't need one. Austin Wells is going to be the catcher of the future in New York, so I have no issue with them trading away some of their catching depth as long as they have a backup plan, because that's a lot of loss in terms of just organizational catching that they now have to replace. So I'm sure they have a plan on how they're going to do that on their minor league system, but otherwise, this is an absolute A+ deal. They basically just traded 4 lottery tickets for someone who has the potential to be one of the best closers in baseball. That is incredibly impressive. The Yankees are in such a unique position that they always just go all in and have some of the best players at all times. So being able to trade away prospects, especially those that are decently far away from the major leagues that aren't necessarily going to be helping your major league roster soon, is obviously a big plus. And none of these guys are at the top of their organizational depth chart in terms of prospects. They're good players, but not players that I think are superstars, and I think that really bodes well for the fact that they traded them away for someone who, if they can fix him a little bit, is going to be a superstar again. And then for the Giants, I'm going to give this a C. I think they really did a good job of spreading out risk across a lot of different players, but I do think that it's not necessarily needed, especially since they're all so far away from the major leagues. The Giants are a team that seems like they should be contending this year. They're obviously not, but trading away Doval, who still has 2 more years of control after this, makes sense given the return that players like Mason Miller have gotten, but I feel like that's part of the reason why I'm kind of whelmed by this. It's not really that great of a deal when you compare it to some of the other offers that other relievers have gotten who were on expiring contracts even. Looking at what the Mets have given up for some of their pitchers. This just doesn't seem like a super high reward deal, Parks Harber is an interesting player. Again, he has all those really cool underlying metrics, but at the end of the day, he's still an older player who started college in 2019, which means he's 24, only playing in high A, right? Like, what's really the upside there? Vrieling still needs to recover from his surgery and kind of build up that workload. And Jesus Rodriguez seems like a guy who is just a corner outfield type. Carlos De La Rosa obviously is doing great in the Dominican Summer League, and we'll see exactly how that develops. Time will tell, but I think it's an interesting haul, but it's not the kind of package I personally would have went for if I was running the Giants. I think there are other configurations of players, whether it's either less players to get a little bit more quality, or just sub a couple out to try and get more upside that I think I would have went for a player of Doval's quality. And thank you for getting to the end of this video. It's been a lot of fun covering this trade deadline. Make sure you subscribe to stay notified for all the trades that are happening, and I hope to see you in the very next video.